When they said this old Marine couldn't raise a boy, they forgot I would been building men out of broken kids for 40 years. My name is Frank Mitchell. I am 73 years old. And for 42 years I built things that lasted: bridges. Mostly. Some buildings. Water treatment facilities. The kind of work where if you cut corners, people die. So you learn to pay attention to details. You learn to spot when something isn't right, even when everyone else says it is fine. You develop an eye for what belongs and what doesn't. What is safe and what is disaster waiting to happen. I never thought I would need those skills to survive my own son's house. Never imagined that the same methodical approach that kept bridges standing for decades would become my lifeline when everything I thought I knew about family started crumbling beneath me. The morning routine starts the same way every day now. 6:15 am sharp. The digital clock blinks red numbers in the corner of what used to be Tommy's bedroom. Back when Tommy was 8 and dreamed of becoming a race car driver. Race car wallpaper still peels at the edges, though Tommy's 38 now and living in Oregon with 2 kids of his own who barely know their great-grandfather exists. I swing my legs over the side of the narrow twin bed, feet finding the cold hardwood floor that creaks in all the familiar places, but sounds different now. Empty, like the house itself is holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. My joints protest as I reach for my glasses on the nightstand, right next to the weekly pill organizer that Diane set up for me with all the precision of an engineer's blueprint. Monday through Sunday, each compartment filled with the little white and blue tablets that keep my heart beating steady and my blood pressure from spiking through the roof like a burst pipe. She means well. Diane does. My daughter, in-law of 15 years, mother to those grandkids I barely see anymore, except in Facebook photos she occasionally shows me on her phone. She took me in after the stroke 3 months ago, after it became clear I couldn't manage the farmhouse alone anymore. Just temporary, we all said. Just until I get my strength back. Until I can drive safely again. Until the left side of my face stops drooping like a poorly hung door. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent when nobody wants to discuss the exit strategy. The bathroom mirror reflects a face I am still getting used to, even after 3 months. The stroke hit me on a Tuesday morning while I was fixing a leaky faucet in the kitchen sink. 1 minute I was tightening a compression fitting. The next minute I was on the floor with my left arm completely useless, and words tumbling out of my mouth like screws from a dropped toolbox. The left side of my mouth still droops slightly. A permanent reminder that my brain decided to short-circuit like a badly wired electrical panel. The doctors at County General called me lucky. Could have been worse, they said. Could have been dead. Could have been completely paralyzed. Could have lost my ability to speak entirely. But when you are 73 years old and suddenly cannot remember how to tie your own work boots some mornings, when simple tasks like opening a jar of pickles become engineering challenges that require strategic planning, lucky feels like a term engineers use when they are trying to put a positive spin on structural failure. I splash cold water on my face, testing how the muscles respond. Better than last week, maybe. The physical therapy is helping, even if progress feels slower than watching concrete cure. Sharon, the therapist, keeps telling me that recovery takes patience, that the brain has to rebuild neural pathways like a road crew fixing damaged infrastructure. I appreciate the construction metaphors, even if they don't make the frustration any easier to bear. Downstairs, the kitchen smells like coffee and something else, something I cannot quite identify, but that makes my stomach tighten with an unease I haven't felt since my first day on a job site 45 years ago. Diane stands at the counter in her pink terry cloth bathrobe, stirring something in a small saucepan with more attention than she usually pays to cooking. She doesn't look up when I shuffle in wearing my old flannel robe and slippers, just points to the chair at the breakfast table where she has already set out a placemat, a spoon, and a paper napkin. The same chair every morning, the one that faces away from the window, away from the view of my old Chevy pickup truck sitting in their driveway with a flat tire. I will probably never get around to fixing. The truck that carried me to job sites for 20 years, hauled lumber and tools and everything I needed to build a life. Now it sits there like a piece of lawn sculpture, slowly gathering rust and reminding me of all the places I cannot go anymore. Morning. Frank, Diane says without quite meeting my eyes, her voice carrying that careful cheerfulness that sounds like customer service training. "Sleep okay? I heard you get up around 3. Bathroom," I explain, settling carefully into the chair. The stroke took some of my balance along with everything else, made me cautious about movements I used to take for granted. Couldn't get back to sleep after that. She nods sympathetically while ladling something brown and thick into a bowl that is decorated with daisies. Probably left over from when their daughter was small. Steam rises from whatever she is serving, carrying that smell again. Sweet, but wrong somehow. Like meat that has been sitting out too long, or food that has gone slightly off but not enough that you would throw it away. "What is for breakfast?" I ask, trying to keep my voice neutral. Engineering taught me to gather information before making judgments, to test assumptions before drawing conclusions. "Just some leftover stew," she says, setting the bowl in front of me with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "Figured we should use it up before it goes bad. Waste not, want not, right?" I nod, accepting the bowl and the explanation. Even though something about it doesn't add up, Diane's not much of a cook, never has been. When Michael first brought her home 18 years ago, she burned water trying to make pasta and called it a learning experience. Her idea of a home-cooked meal usually comes from a box or a can, prepared with the enthusiasm of someone fulfilling an obligation rather than nurturing a family. But this isn't just poor cooking. This is something else entirely. I lift the spoon, blow on it gently out of habit, and take a small bite. The taste hits me immediately, and every instinct I have developed over 7 decades of life starts sending up warning signals like a smoke detector in a burning building. Too salty, too sweet. The texture is wrong, grainy and gelatinous at the same time. And underneath it all, something that makes my throat want to close up and my stomach rebel against accepting another bite. I have eaten army rations during my brief stint in the National Guard. I have consumed construction site lunch truck food that probably violated multiple health codes. I have survived gas station sandwiches that tasted like cardboard soaked in regret. But this tastes like something else entirely. This tastes like punishment disguised as mercy. I glance over at Rex, Michael's old German shepherd, lying by the back door with the patient dignity of a dog who has learned to expect very little from life. His food bowl sits nearby on a rubber mat, and I can see the same brown chunks clinging to the blue ceramic. The same color, the same texture, the same smell that is making my breakfast taste like humiliation. "Diane," I say carefully, setting down my spoon with the deliberate precision I once used to place the final bolt in a bridge joint. "What kind of stew is this exactly?" She is already moving away from the table, rinsing dishes at the sink with more energy than the task requires. Her shoulders tight with something that might be anxiety or guilt, or just the normal stress of caring for an elderly man who asks too many questions. "Oh, you know," she says without turning around. "Just ground beef and vegetables, carrots, potatoes. Nothing fancy. I am not exactly Julia Child, but I have been reading ingredient labels and checking quality specifications since before she was born. I know what ground beef smells like, what it tastes like, how it behaves when it is cooked properly. This isn't ground beef. This isn't vegetables from any garden I have ever seen. This is something designed for digestive systems that can handle raw meat and table scraps. Something formulated for creatures who don't care about nutritional balance or food safety regulations. This is dog food, and she knows it. I finish what I can stomach, which amounts to maybe 3 spoonfuls, and excuse myself to the living room with the kind of careful politeness that has served me well in 40 years of dealing with difficult clients and unreasonable building inspectors. Michael's already left for work at the parts warehouse where he manages inventory. Steady pay but long hours that keep him away from home most of the day. We barely talk anymore. Just the polite exchanges about weather and doctor appointments, and whether I need anything from the store. The stroke changed our relationship somehow. Made him treat me like I am made of glass. Like I might shatter if he speaks too loudly or asks too much of me. Or maybe it just revealed what was already there. The careful distance that grows between generations when nobody knows how to bridge the gap between who you were and who you have become. The house settles into its daytime quiet. That particular silence of a place where people live separate lives under the same roof. Diane watches her morning talk shows from the kitchen. Volume turned up loud enough that I can hear the host's artificial laughter drifting through the house like a soundtrack to loneliness. I position myself in the recliner by the living room window, the chair that has become my designated territory, my small kingdom in a house that belongs to someone else. From here I have got a clear view of the neighbor's yard, and I watch old Pete Morrison working in his garden with the systematic patience of a man who has found purpose in small daily tasks. Pete's got to be pushing 80, but he is still out there every morning at 7 sharp, tending to his tomatoes and peppers like they are paying the mortgage. His wife Eleanor died 2 years back, massive heart attack while she was hanging laundry on the line, but he kept her garden, says it gives him something to look forward to, something that depends on him showing up every day. Purpose. That is what I am missing. Sitting here in this chair that isn't really mine, in a house that doesn't quite feel like home, eating food that tastes like they are trying to poison me slowly. Not maliciously, maybe, but with the kind of careless cruelty that comes from thinking someone will not notice, will not remember, will not have the strength or clarity to speak up for themselves. I used to have purpose. For 42 years I woke up knowing exactly what needed to be done and how to do it. Bridge foundations don't dig themselves. Structural steel doesn't cut and weld itself into position. Projects don't manage themselves through the complex dance of engineering specifications, building codes, safety regulations, and budget constraints that separate successful construction from expensive disasters. Every morning I would drive to a job site knowing that what I built that day would still be standing when my grandchildren were old enough to drive across it. There is something to be said for work that outlasts the man who does it, for leaving behind something solid and useful that makes other people's lives a little bit easier. Now my biggest daily challenge is pretending not to notice that someone is feeding me the same food they give to a dog, and my greatest accomplishment is making it through breakfast without throwing up on myself. After what passes for lunch, which consists of a sandwich with meat that could be anything and bread that tastes like cardboard, I make my way upstairs for what Diane calls rest time. Like I am 5 years old and need a supervised nap to keep me from getting cranky. But I don't sleep during these afternoon sessions. Instead, I think. Thinking, it turns out, is one of the few activities the stroke didn't take away from me. My body may be slower, my speech occasionally slurred, my left hand still shaky enough that I cannot trust it with anything important. But my mind is still sharp, still trained to approach problems with the systematic methodology that kept bridges standing and buildings from falling down. Step 1. Identify the problem. Someone is feeding me food that isn't fit for human consumption. Step 2. Gather data. I need more than suspicion and bad taste. I need evidence, documentation, proof that would stand up to scrutiny. Step 3. Test the hypothesis. If they are really giving me dog food, there should be traces of it in the house. Purchase records, empty cans or bags, something concrete I can point to. Step 4. Implement a solution. Once I know for certain what is happening, I can decide how to handle it. But I need to be careful. If I am wrong, if I am just a confused old man who has lost his ability to distinguish between cheap human food and pet food, then making accusations will only confirm what they probably already suspect about my mental state. If I am right, then confronting them too early without solid evidence will just teach them to be more careful about covering their tracks. Either way, I need to gather information before I can build a case. That is how you handle engineering problems. And this feels like the most important engineering problem of my life. That evening, Michael comes home tired and distracted, kissing Diane's cheek with the automatic affection of a man going through familiar motions. He asks about her day, nods when she tells him I am doing fine, eating well, taking my medicine, no complaints, just fine, like I am a household appliance that is functioning within acceptable parameters. I sit in my designated chair, listening to them talk about me like I am not in the room, and I start to understand something important about my situation. They are not trying to hurt me, exactly. They are trying to manage me, like I am a problem to be solved with the least amount of effort and expense possible. The dog food isn't malicious, it is efficient, cheap, filling, and if the old man's too addled to notice the difference, then no harm done. Except I am not addled. The stroke affected my motor skills, threw off my balance, made my left side weaker than my right. But my mind is still sharp, still trained to notice when the blueprints don't match the foundation, when someone's cutting corners that shouldn't be cut. Over the next few days, I start paying closer attention to everything, applying the same systematic observation skills I used to use for quality control inspections. I watch Diane prepare my meals, noting the timing, the containers she uses, the way she handles the food differently when she thinks I am not looking. I watch Rex eat his dinner and compare it to mine, noting the similarities in color, texture, and smell that go beyond coincidence. I start keeping notes again, something I haven't done since my early days as a project supervisor when site foremen were required to maintain daily logs of progress, problems, and personnel issues. But this time I am documenting something different. Something that makes me feel sick in ways that have nothing to do with food poisoning. Meal times, food descriptions, how I feel afterward. Physical symptoms like stomach, upset, headaches. The general malaise that comes from eating things your body knows it shouldn't be processing. Emotional symptoms too, though those are harder to quantify. The growing sense that I am not being cared for so much as managed, stored, kept out of the way while the real family gets on with their lives. The journal lives in my old work jacket pocket, the canvas Carhartt coat I have worn to job sites for 20 years. Diane suggested I pack it away with my other old things when I moved in. Said there was no point holding on to clothes I would never wear again. But I told her I wasn't ready to let go of it yet. Some things you hold on to not because you need them, but because they remind you who you used to be, who you still are. Underneath the stroke, and the pills and the careful way everyone talks to you now. 2 weeks into my unofficial investigation, I decide to run a controlled test. I tell Diane I am not feeling well, that my stomach's been bothering me and I am wondering if maybe I could have something bland for dinner. Just toast, maybe some soup from a can, something that will not upset my digestion. She frowns at this request, says she will see what she can do. That evening she serves me a bowl of chicken noodle soup that tastes exactly like chicken noodle soup should taste. Campbell's probably, but recognizable. Normal. The difference is so stark it nearly brings tears to my eyes. The next day, she is back to the brown mush. Says my stomach must be feeling better. So we are back to the regular menu. When I ask what is in it this time, she gives me the same vague answer about leftover stew. And waste not, want not. I start making excuses to go out of the house. Something I haven't done much since moving in with them. Doctor appointments. Mostly, though I stretch them longer than necessary and sometimes invent follow-up visits that don't actually exist. I will drive to the medical center in my old truck, sit through whatever tests or consultations they have scheduled, then stop at Murphy's Diner downtown for coffee and a piece of pie. Real food. Prepared by someone who expects it to be eaten by humans. Food that tastes like what it is supposed to be. The waitress there, Sue, has known me since the old days when I would grab lunch between job sites. She treats me the same as always. Doesn't talk slower or louder. Doesn't act like my stroke made me stupid or dangerous. One afternoon, after I have been coming in for 2 weeks straight, I work up the courage to ask her something that has been eating at me. Sue, I say, keeping my voice casual while I stir sugar into my coffee. You ever hear of people feeding dog food too? Well, people. She looks up from wiping down the counter, eyebrows raised in the kind of expression that suggests she has heard plenty of strange things in 30 years of waiting tables. But this one's new. Dog food? To people, Frank. That is not just wrong, that is dangerous. Especially for someone your age. That stuff's not regulated the same way human food is. Different ingredients, different processing standards, could make you real sick. I nod, filing that information away in the mental folder I have been building. Just curious. Saw something on the news about it. But Sue's looking at me with the kind of concerned attention that cuts through pretense, like a sharp blade through soft wood. Frank, you eating okay at Michael's place? You look thinner than when you started coming in here last month. I want to tell her everything. Want to lay it all out on the table like blueprints for a project that has gone wrong. Explain about the bowls and the smell. and the way my stomach rebels against whatever they are feeding me, but pride stops me, the same stubborn pride that kept me working 10 years past normal retirement age, that made me insist I could handle the farmhouse alone, even after Martha died of cancer 5 years ago. Pride that is probably more dangerous than dog food. In the long run, I am fine, I tell her. The lie tasting almost as bad as breakfast, just adjusting to retirement life. That night, I call my grandson Jake at college. He is 20, studying computer science at State, smart as a whip and always has been. Takes after his grandfather. Martha used to say, though she meant the asking too many questions part, not the stubborn as a mule part. Grandpa Frank. His voice comes through the phone warm and genuine, probably the first completely honest emotion I have heard directed at me in weeks. How is the new living situation? Dad said you are settling in. Okay. It is fine. I start. Then pause. Jake, you know anything about food regulations? What makes something safe for humans versus animals? There is a moment of silence on the other end, and I can almost hear him shifting mental gears. That is kind of a random question. Grandpa, everything okay? I scramble for a cover story that will not make me sound like a paranoid old man losing his grip on reality. Just watching a documentary about the food industry got me thinking about quality control. Well, I mean, there are totally different standards. FDA regulates human food pretty strictly. Lots of testing and requirements for nutritional content and safety. But pet food has different rules, different ingredients they can use, different processing methods. Why? Just curious. I am quiet for a moment, then decide to test the waters with something safer. You remember your grandma Martha's cooking? How she always said you could tell the quality of a meal by the care that went into preparing it. Yeah, his voice softens with the kind of affection that only comes from genuine happy memories. I miss her Sunday dinners. The way she would spend all morning in the kitchen, making everything from scratch. Even the bread. Me too. And I do miss it, more than I can put into words. Miss the way she would set the table with actual cloth napkins, not paper towels. Miss the way she would taste everything twice, adjusting seasoning until it was exactly right. Miss eating meals that were prepared with love instead of obligation. Food that nourished something deeper than just physical hunger. After I hang up, I sit in my small room for a long time, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the house settling around me. Diane's watching television downstairs, volume turned up loud like always. Michael's working late again, or says he is. Sometimes I wonder if he is just avoiding the tension that is built up in this house like humidity before a storm. 3 days later, I make a decision that feels like stepping off a bridge before you are completely sure the safety line will hold. I drive to the grocery store, something I haven't done since moving in with them. Diane does all the shopping now, says it is easier that way, less for me to worry about. But I need to see something with my own eyes. Need to confirm what I think I already know. The pet food aisle stretches longer than I remembered. Rows and rows of bags and cans with pictures of happy dogs and cats living their best lives. I walk slowly down the aisle, reading labels and comparing prices, until I find what I am looking for. The brand I am pretty sure matches what has been sitting in my bowl for the past month. Gourmet dog meals. The package announces in fancy script lettering, premium nutrition for your best friend. All natural ingredients. Chicken and rice formula. I pick up a can, turn it over, read the fine print. Meat byproducts, cornmeal, artificial flavors and preservatives. And at the bottom, in letters small enough that you would have to be looking for them. For animal feeding only, not for human consumption, the can costs $1.50. I buy 6 of them, along with a loaf of bread and some lunch meat. Real lunch meat. The kind that says 100% beef on the package and costs 3 times as much as the dog food. When I get home, Diane's in the kitchen starting dinner preparation. She looks surprised to see the grocery bags. Maybe a little alarmed, Frank. You didn't need to go shopping. I have got everything under control here. Just picked up a few things, I tell her. Setting the bags on the counter with deliberate care. Thought I would contribute to the household expenses. She freezes when she sees the dog food cans. Just for a second, but I catch it. The way her hand stills on whatever she was stirring. The slight change in her breathing pattern. The quick glance toward the pantry where she stores things she doesn't want me to see. What is all this for, she asks, trying to keep her voice light and casual. Rex, I say simply, figured I should help with his food budget since I am eating you out of house and home. She forces a laugh that sounds like breaking glass. Frank, you hardly eat anything, and we have got Rex's food situation covered. But she is looking at those cans like they are evidence in a criminal trial, which, I am starting to realize, they might be. That night, dinner tastes different. Still not great. Still not anything I would choose to eat if I had better options. But different. More like actual food, and less like punishment. I eat what I can. Compliment Diane on whatever effort she has made, and excuse myself early. In my room, I add a new entry to my journal. Presented subject with evidence of awareness. Immediate behavioral change observed. Working hypothesis appears correct. The next morning, I make another phone call to Jake. Grandpa too calls in 1 week. Is everything okay? I need a favor, I tell him, keeping my voice low even though the house is quiet. And I need you to not tell your father about it. Not yet. There is a pause, and I can almost hear him sitting up straighter in whatever dorm room chair he is occupying. What kind of favor? The kind where your old grandfather needs someone with a young brain and good computer skills to help him figure something out. I can hear him shifting around, probably closing whatever textbook he was studying, and giving me his full attention. Okay, I am listening, so I tell him. Not everything. Not the whole humiliating truth about what it feels like to be fed like an animal in your own family's house. But enough. About the food that doesn't taste right. About my suspicions. About the cans I bought at the grocery store, and the way Diane reacted when she saw them. I tell him like it is a puzzle we are solving together. An engineering problem that requires systematic analysis and careful solution. Jake listens without interrupting, which is more than most people his age would do. When I finish, he is quiet for a long time, and I can almost hear him processing the information, like a computer running calculations. Grandpa, he says finally, are you telling me you think they are feeding you dog food? The words hang in the air between us, connected by cell phone towers and fiber optic cables, but weighted with the kind of truth that changes everything once it is spoken out loud. I think I need proof, I say. And I think I need someone who knows how to gather it properly. I will be there this weekend, he says without hesitation. Don't do anything else until I get there. Promise me. I promise. But I don't promise to stop paying attention. If anything, I watch even more closely now, applying the kind of systematic observation I used to use for quality control inspections on major construction projects. I note the way Diane's whole body language changes when she is preparing my food, versus when she is making something for herself and Michael. The way she never sits down to eat with me anymore, always claiming she ate earlier or she is trying to lose weight. The way Michael asks how I am feeling but never waits long enough to hear a real answer. Friday evening, Jake's old Honda Civic pulls into the driveway with the distinctive rattling sound of a car that has seen better decades. I watch from my window as he unfolds his tall frame from the driver's seat, shouldering a backpack that probably contains half his dorm room. He has grown another couple of inches since Christmas, filled out some through the shoulders. College life agrees with him, or maybe it is just the difference between being 18 and 20, between being a boy figuring out who he might become and a young man starting to discover who he actually is. Diane greets him at the door with the kind of enthusiastic warmth she never shows me anymore. Jake, what a wonderful surprise. Your dad didn't mention you were coming home. Last-minute decision, he says, hugging her briefly before scanning the room until he spots me in my chair. Thought I would visit Grandpa Frank, see how he is adjusting to the new place. We spend the evening playing cards at the kitchen table. Gin rummy and 7-card stud. Just like we used to when he was little, and would spend whole weekends at the farmhouse helping me with small repair projects, and learning to use tools properly. Diane hovers nearby, offering snacks, and asking questions about his classes and his social life. Normal family behavior, except for the way she keeps glancing toward the pantry where I am pretty sure she stores the dog food. That night, after Michael and Diane have gone to bed, Jake slips into my room carrying his laptop computer, like it is a toolkit designed for solving 21st century problems. "Okay, Grandpa," he says, keeping his voice low and settling into the chair by my desk. "Show me what you have got." I pull out my journal, hand him the photos I managed to take of the dog food labels with my old flip phone. The images are blurry and poorly lit, but readable enough to make the point. He plugs a USB cable into my phone, downloads everything to his computer with the efficiency of someone who has grown up thinking of technology as just another tool. "You were smart to document this," he says, scrolling through my hand-written notes and digital photos. "This is elder abuse, Grandpa, plain and simple." Hearing him say it out loud makes something twist in my chest like a wrench applied to the wrong bolt. Elder abuse. Like I am a victim. Helpless and confused. Someone who needs protection because I cannot protect myself. But Jake must see something in my expression because he reaches over and grips my shoulder with surprising strength. "This isn't about you being weak," he says firmly. "This is about them being wrong. What they are doing is illegal. And it is dangerous. And you have every right to be angry about it." He opens a new browser window and starts typing with the rapid-fire keyboard skills of his generation. "Let me show you something. FDA regulations on pet food versus human food standards. Nutritional requirements for elderly adults. Legal precedents for elder neglect cases." For the next hour, we build a case together. Not just with emotions and suspicions, but with facts. Government regulations, medical research, legal documentation. Jake's got his grandfather's methodical approach to problem solving, but with access to information resources I never could have imagined when I was his age. "We need more evidence," he says finally, leaning back in his chair like an engineer reviewing structural calculations. "Photos of them actually serving you the dog food. Documentation of the health effects you have been experiencing. Maybe a statement from your doctor about your nutritional needs and the potential harm from eating pet food." How do we get that kind of evidence without them knowing what we are up to? Jake grins. And for a moment he looks exactly like Michael did at that age, before life wore him down into someone who takes the path of least resistance. "Leave that to me, Grandpa. I have got some ideas." Saturday morning, Jake announces that he wants to cook breakfast for everyone. Family bonding. He calls it a chance to show off the culinary skills he has learned living in the dorms. Diane seems pleased, probably relieved to have the kitchen duties taken over by someone else for a change. What she doesn't realize is that Jake's smartphone is propped against the toaster, camera running, recording everything that happens in the kitchen. The audio quality isn't perfect, but it is good enough to catch the distinctive sound of a can opener working on pet food, the wet squelch of processed meat product being spooned into a bowl. "What is in Grandpa's bowl?" Jake asks with carefully manufactured innocence, stirring scrambled eggs for his own breakfast. "Just some leftover stew," Diane replies, not quite meeting his eyes while she sets my portion in front of me. Jake nods like this explanation makes perfect sense. Keeps cooking his eggs, doesn't react when I push the food around my bowl without actually eating more than a bite or two. Later, upstairs in my room, he shows me the footage on his laptop. Clear video evidence of dog food being served to me while she claims it is human food. "This is criminal," he says, anger making his voice tight. "We could take this to the police right now and they would have to investigate." But I shake my head, applying the same measured approach I have always used for handling problems that could destroy relationships if handled wrong. "Not yet. I want to confront them first. Give them a chance to explain themselves, maybe even to do the right thing." Jake looks at me like I have lost my mind, which is probably how I would look at someone in my situation if I were 20 years old and thought the world was divided into clear categories of right and wrong. "Grandpa, they have been feeding you dog food for months. Why would you give them a chance to explain that?" "Because that is how you handle serious problems," I tell him, drawing on 4 decades of experience with construction disputes and contract negotiations. You give people the opportunity to fix their mistakes before you bring in outside authorities. It is called giving them a chance to preserve their dignity while they make things right. That afternoon, Jake and I take a drive in my old pickup truck. Not anywhere specific. Just around town, past the elementary school where I used to watch Michael play Little League baseball, past Murphy's Diner where Sue still serves real food to people who remember when dining out was a treat instead of a necessity, past Riverside Cemetery where Martha's buried under a simple granite headstone that says beloved wife and mother in letters, deep enough to last forever. I miss her. I tell Jake as we sit in the truck with the engine idling, looking out over the rows of headstones that mark the end of so many stories. Me too. She never would have let this happen to you. No. I agree. Thinking about the way Martha used to set the table with cloth napkins and make sure everyone had enough to eat before she took a single bite herself. She wouldn't have, but she is not here anymore. And I am. So I have to handle this myself. You are not handling it by yourself, Jake says. And there is something fierce in his voice that reminds me of his great-grandmother. You have got me. And we are going to make sure this stops. That evening, I ask Michael if we can talk privately. Just the two of us, man to man. After dinner, he agrees readily enough. Probably thinking I want to discuss my medication schedule or my physical therapy progress, or whether I am ready to start driving longer distances again. Instead, I wait until Diane's busy in the kitchen cleaning up. Then I set one of the dog food cans on the coffee table between us like evidence in a courtroom. Son, I say quietly, we need to talk about what your wife has been feeding me. I watch his face go through several distinct changes, confusion as he processes what he is looking at, recognition as he understands what I am implying, embarrassment as he realizes what this means about his household and his marriage, and finally, something that might be relief, like he has been waiting for this conversation without knowing it. Dad, he starts. But I hold up my hand the way I used to when he was a teenager trying to talk his way out of trouble. Let me finish first. For the past 3 months, I have been eating food intended for Rex. Food that is not safe for humans, especially not for someone my age with my health conditions. I have documentation of this. I have photos, recorded conversations, medical research about the health risks. I could take this to the police, to Adult Protective Services, to a lawyer who specializes in elder abuse cases. Michael's face has gone pale, his hands shaking slightly, like he is the one who had a stroke. Dad, I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know it was that bad. Didn't know, or didn't want to know. I ask, keeping my voice level and non-accusatory, because there is a difference. And the difference matters. He is quiet for a long time. Staring at the dog food can it might provide answers to questions he has been avoiding. Finally, he looks up at me with eyes that remind me of the little boy who used to cry when he accidentally broke my tools. I knew the food was cheap, he says slowly. I knew Diane was cutting corners everywhere she could, but I told myself it was just budget meals, store-brand stuff. Maybe some generic products that didn't taste great but were nutritionally adequate. I didn't want to think it could be. He cannot finish the sentence. Dog food, I supply. You didn't want to think your wife was feeding your father dog food. Jesus. He puts his head in his hands. I am so sorry, Dad. I am so goddamn sorry. After everything you did for us, everything you sacrificed, the money you gave us for the down payment on this house, the way you helped when the kids were born, the way you took care of Mom when she was sick, and this is how we repay you. I lean back in my chair, feeling every one of my 73 years but also somehow lighter than I have felt in months. Like a structural load has been redistributed, and the whole building is more stable. Michael, I don't want your apology, I tell him. I want your action. This stops immediately tonight. No more dog food. No more lies about what is in my bowl. No more treating me like I am too stupid, or too sick to notice what is happening to me. He nods quickly, eagerly. Yes, absolutely. I will talk to Diane. I will make sure she understands my voice carries the authority I used to use with subcontractors who weren't following specifications. I will talk to Diane. You will listen. And then we will all figure out what comes next. When Diane enters the living room 10 minutes later, she takes one look at the dog food can on the coffee table. Michael's stricken expression, my determined posture. And she knows. Her shoulders sag like a building settling into its foundation, all the artificial energy draining out of her at once. How long have you known? She asks, settling into her chair with the careful movements of someone preparing for a battle they know they cannot win. Long enough, I tell her. Long enough to document it thoroughly, to get medical opinions about the health risks, to build a case that would stand up in any court in the country. Her laugh is bitter, brittle. Court. Really, Frank? You are going to sue your own family over a few meals that didn't meet your gourmet standards? And that is when I realize she still doesn't understand the magnitude of what she has done. Still thinks this is about my being too picky or demanding, rather than about basic human dignity. A few meals. The anger I have been holding back for months finally breaks free like water through a cracked dam. Diane, you have been feeding me pet food for 3 months. Not because you are broke, not because you don't know any better, but because you thought I was too old and too stupid to notice the difference. Because you thought treating me like an animal was more convenient than treating me like a human being. She tries to interrupt, but I keep going. Applying the same systematic approach I have always used for addressing serious problems. I built bridges for 42 years. I know what happens when people cut corners. When they use substandard materials. When they think nobody will notice the difference between what is safe and what is just barely adequate. People get hurt. Structures fail. Lives get ruined. I stand up, my legs steadier than they have been in weeks, and look her directly in the eyes. I will not be your substandard material, Diane. I will not be your shortcut or your cost saving measure. I am moving out of this house, and I am never eating another meal you prepare. Dad, Michael starts, but I turn to face him. I am moving back to the farmhouse. Jake's going to help me set it up properly for someone with my limitations. Ramps, grab bars, whatever modifications I need to live safely and independently. But I am done being managed like a problem that needs solving with the least possible effort. Diane's face cycles through several emotions: anger, fear, something that might actually be relief. You cannot live alone, Frank. The doctor said you need supervision, need help with daily activities. The doctor said I needed assistance with certain tasks. I correct her. He didn't say I needed to be infantilized and poisoned. There is a difference between helping someone maintain their independence and stripping away their dignity. I pick up the dog food can, hand it to her with the formality of returning evidence to its proper owner. This is for Rex. Feed it to Rex. 3 weeks later, I am sitting on my own front porch again, watching the sun set over the cornfields that stretch to the horizon like a green ocean. Jake spent his spring break helping me modify the farmhouse, installing safety features that allow me to live independently, without sacrificing the dignity that makes life worth living. The grab bars in the bathroom are painted the same color as the walls so they don't scream "disabled person lives here." The ramp leading to the front door is built like a proper deck, wide and attractive enough that visitors think it is just good design rather than medical necessity. Sue from Murphy's Diner stops by twice a week, always bringing a casserole or a pie made too much again. She says, though we both know she is cooking specifically for me. Pete Morrison from next door comes over most evenings to share a beer on the porch, talking about everything except the reason I moved back home. We discuss the weather, the crops, the state of the roads, the way the town's been changing since the big box stores moved in. Michael visits every Sunday, often bringing the grandkids when their schedules allow. We are rebuilding our relationship slowly and carefully, like reconstructing a bridge that suffered structural damage. Some trust has to be re-earned. Some foundations have to be repoured. But the work is honest now, and that makes all the difference. I still keep the journal, though now it records different kinds of information. Good meals prepared with care. Visits from friends who remember who I used to be. Small victories like the day I managed to replace a kitchen faucet without calling for help. Progress instead of degradation. Life instead of merely surviving. 2 months after I moved out, Michael called to tell me that Diane had started seeing a therapist. Working through some issues, he said, trying to understand why she would treated me the way she did. I told him that was good, that everyone deserves help when they need it. But I also told him that some wounds take time to heal. and some bridges cannot be rebuilt exactly the way they were before the damage occurred. Tonight, as I write in my journal by the light of the lamp, Martha bought at an estate sale 20 years ago, I am thinking about the difference between being cared for and being managed, between growing old and being old, between surviving and actually living. I am thinking about the taste of real food prepared with consideration for the person who is going to eat it, about conversations where people wait for your answer instead of just going through the motions of asking questions. Most of all, I am thinking about Jake, asleep upstairs in his father's old room, home for the weekend before his final exams, about how he didn't just help me gather evidence or move furniture, but help me remember that my voice still matters, that my experience still has value, that my story deserves to be told in my own words, rather than being filtered through other people's assumptions about what old age means. Tomorrow I will wake up in my own bed, make coffee in my own kitchen, eat food I chose and prepared myself. I will work in Martha's garden, read the newspaper from front to back, maybe call Jake to see how his studying is going. Simple things, ordinary things. But they will taste like freedom, because they represent choices I am making for myself rather than accommodations other people are making for me. And if anyone asks me what I learned from those months of eating shame disguised as nutrition, I will tell them this. Dignity isn't about never needing help. It is about making sure the help you receive treats you like the person you still are, not just the problem you appear to be. It is about remembering that growing old doesn't mean becoming less than human, and that sometimes the most important engineering project of your life is rebuilding your own foundation when other people have tried to undermine it. That is what this old bridge builder learned. Anyway, and after 42 years of constructing things that last, I think this lesson might be the most important structure I have ever designed.